Welcome to Workday Finance Processing Customer Invoices. In this session, we'll review the details and processes for creating and adjusting customer invoices and invoice reports, printing invoices, consolidating customer invoices, processing customer payments, and issuing customer refunds. Let's begin with entering customer invoices in Workday, which enables accounts receivable specialists to record sales events and create the resulting receivable accounting. There are 4 primary steps in the customer invoice process. 1. Create customer invoice. 2. Approve customer invoice. 3. Review customer invoice. And 4. Email/print customer invoice. The first step in the customer invoice process is to use the Create Customer Invoice task. The customer invoice contains the following sections: invoice information, additional information, and amount information. Within the invoice information section, you'll enter company, bill to customer, and invoice date manually. The invoice type field allows you to alter the print layout based on type. For example, an invoice for a project may display differently than an invoice for goods-related services. Workday copies the bill to address, payment terms, payment type, and currency into the header based on the selected customer. Within the additional information section, you'll input the payment terms data manually. Key dates within this section include the invoice due date and, if applicable, the discount date. Work tags are also part of this section. Within the amount information section, you'll input the currency field data manually. The control total amount field is the expected sum of the extended amount field on the invoice lines, which you'll also enter into this invoice. After entering the invoice header information, you'll add detailed line items to the invoice. The invoice lines contain the line items details section, where you'll enter a sales item or revenue category. The amount section, which contains fields such as quantity, unit of measure, unit price, and extended amount, which is quantity times unit price. The additional information section, which contains date and tax information. And the work tag origin information section, where you may specify applicable work tags or project phase if the invoice is for a billable project. The next step in the process is approval. Depending on the setup, there will be one of 2 outcomes when you submit the invoice. Complete, displaying a check icon indicating that the process completed successfully. And up next, meaning that the business process requires further approvals, such as if the invoice is greater than a certain amount. For the third step, you'll review the customer invoice in detail by running the Find Customer Invoices for Company report. On the View Customer Invoice report, notice that the invoice status is approved. However, the payment status is unpaid, as you'll still need to send it for receipt of customer payment. Another report is the Accounting for Customer Invoice. This report provides information on the operational journal transaction for a customer invoice. Debit DR is to ledger account 1200. Accounts receivable trade and the credit CR is to ledger account, and 4999 management fee revenue. Prior to printing or emailing, review the customer invoice. Another option to print an invoice is to use the Find Customer Invoices for Company report. Using the report's Related Actions icon, you'll notice a print option. You also have the option of emailing the customer invoice. Select the Email Customer Invoice button. Confirm intent, initiating a business process that may require a review. During the review process, you'll have an option to choose email as the invoice delivery method. As a reminder, an administrator specifies the customer email address when creating the customer object. After creating a customer invoice, you can create a customer invoice adjustment. You can decrease or increase the amount owed by a customer via the Create Customer Invoice Adjustment task. A more efficient way to create the adjustments is to use the Related Actions icon for a specific invoice. When you create an adjustment, you must provide a date and an adjustment reason. On the invoice adjustment information screen, you'll input data into the following fields: company, bill to customer, adjustment date, either debit increase amount due or credit decrease amount due, and adjustment reason. Now that we've reviewed creating a customer invoice, let's explore creating consolidated customer invoices. You can consolidate multiple outstanding invoices into a single invoice or consolidate daily invoices into a single weekly invoice. Consolidated invoices allow you to print and email fewer invoices, a simple way to maintain customer satisfaction. To create a consolidated customer invoice, use the Create Consolidated Customer Invoice task. You'll input data for the following fields: company, customer, and invoice currency. We have reviewed processing, adjusting, and printing customer invoices, as well as creating consolidated customer invoices. In Workday, you may also process customer payments and issue refunds. Let's first examine the process for customer payments. Customer payments apply to invoices or invoice adjustments. To process payments, execute one of two tasks: the Record Customer Payment task or the Mass Record Customer Payment task. Note that the Mass Record Payment task is an efficient option to use when there are multiple customer invoices. Let's review the Record Customer Payment task. When recording the customer payment, you'll input data into the following fields: company, payment currency, payment date, payment type, total payment amount, and invoice currency. Once the organization receives the customer payment, Workday provides two options to process customer deposits: the Record Customer Payment task or the Create Customer Deposit task. The Record Customer Payment task is ideal for a single deposit item. Select the Create Deposit off the Record Customer Payments task. Workday requires data for the bank account and deposit reference fields. The Create Customer Deposit task is ideal for entering multiple payments into one bank deposit. You'll input data into the company and payment currency fields. You have the option to add data to fields such as deposit date and payment types. After receiving and depositing a payment, you may use journal lines to review the payment transaction. For example, here are the resulting journal lines on the View Accounting for Customer Transaction for the customer invoice payment transaction. Workday debits cash received and credits accounts receivable. Given circumstances, you may eventually need to issue a refund. Let's review how to create and process refunds in Workday. There are two cases where a refund is possible. There's an adjustment on a customer invoice, and the customer has an on-account balance where they made an overpayment. To process and record a customer refund, you must first deposit the money. You can also refund money to a customer without having to set up the customer as a supplier. To initiate a refund, use the Create Customer Refund task. You'll input data into the following fields: company, customer, currency, and refund date. Within the refund payment information section, you'll input data into the payee and payment type fields. In addition to the required fields, you'll provide a reason for the refund, such as on-account payments or invoice adjustments. In this session, we've reviewed how to process, report, distribute, and adjust customer invoices. We've also discussed how to create consolidated customer invoices, process customer payments, and issue customer refunds. Thank you for taking the time to learn with Workday.